History shows us that the process of instituting reform, even by the most well-meaning, is an elusive goal. Too often, promised reforms become mired in special interest politics before finally being consumed by institutional inertia. For those who follow juvenile justice, this pattern is all too familiar. Allegations and public outcry over conditions in California youth correctional facilities are nothing new. Since the opening of the state's first training schools in Whittier and Ione in 1892 and 1894, periodic scandals over mismanagement, brutality, or incompetence occur regularly at 5 to 10-year intervals. The pattern is consistent. First, it begins with a media report dealing some misdeed within the institution. This ignites a public outcry. And to quiet public concerns, public officials quickly appoint an investigative committee. After a few months, the committee issues a report calling for managerial and programmatic reforms. Policymakers then institute a few cosmetic changes, such as a new director or a new program or some additional staffing. At no time are the sweeping structural deficiencies that gave rise to the problem ever given serious consideration. As a result, no changes ever occur, and with no change, the cycle soon repeats itself. And this is a pattern we have seen in California institutions, as I said, going back to the 1890s, folks. In California, the cycle will not be broken until we face the issue of eliminating the large 19th century training schools in favor of smaller, more regional-based facilities capable of providing rehabilitation. The questions before us today are this: what strategies can we employ to change our failed system of youth corrections? And should resources and responsibilities be transferred to the counties? We've divided the conference into 5 segments. The first session will be delivered by our keynote speaker and will cover the challenges of juvenile justice reform. The second session will feature a panel of experts on how California can restructure its youth correction system. Session 3 features Mr. Bernie Warner, who is now the new director of youth corrections in California, who was recently appointed by the governor, and he'll be here to talk about the governor's plan. Session 4 will include a panel of youths discussing their experiences in the California system. And finally, the 5th session will be a panel of experts discussing approaches to improving county juvenile justice services. I think, folks, we have an outstanding lineup for today, and I think there's going to be a lot of information that's put out there, and I think at the very least this will be a very stimulating day for those of us who work in the juvenile justice field. Before I turn to our first speaker, I would like to thank some people for making this conference possible. First and foremost, I'd like to extend a special thanks to Dan Corsello from the Van Lobensel's Foundation, the executive director. Dan has been absolutely wonderful. He and Ron Clement of the Hayes-Katina Foundation have been instrumental in making this possible and have been wonderful and helpful and just providing real guidance. I'd also like to thank the Board of Trustees of the Van Lobensel's Foundation. Tony Remby, Edward Nathan, Jill Taylor-Gibbs, and Richard Odgers. Without their support, this could not have happened. I'd also like to extend a thank you to the members of the Van Lobensel's family, Paige Van Lobensel's, Dee Dee Van Lobensel's, and Tom Van Lobensel's. Thank you. Finally, just as a personal note, I'd like to acknowledge a friend of mine who's in the audience, John Lum. For those of you who don't know John, he was the first chief probation officer in California to call for a moratorium on commitments to the California Youth Authority. After personally inspecting CYA facilities, I think his courage to speak up while most others were silent deserves acknowledgement. Thank you, John.